On the night the crime lord noticed the florist, his fate was already bleeding out. Across a glittering wedding ballroom, under champagne lights and pale roses, Vincent Russo saw Lily Morgan standing like a ghost in lavender silk, hiding scars beneath her sleeve. He crossed the room like a man approaching destiny, not knowing this quiet woman would become his greatest love and his final undoing. In his world, men died for power, but for the first time he was about to risk everything for tenderness, and that was the more fatal mistake.
For an individual of Vincent Russo's constitution, fear was a systemic impossibility. Yet a dissonance registered the evening he observed her, the florist, Lily Morgan, a new and unpredictable element within his meticulously controlled dominion. Her small shop functioned as a haven, a delicate buffer against the violence of her own history. Their gazes connected across the room, a convergence of two fractured psyches that immediately exposed a critical vulnerability in his defenses to his adversaries. This is a record of a connection born from trauma, of a predator's armor being compromised, and the fatal cost of intimacy in a world structured by violence. A procedural note for documentation: engagement will be tracked via likes and geolocated comments. The setting was a Saturday evening at Manhattan's Metropolitan Club, a tableau of suffocating affluence. Lily Morgan occupied the periphery, a wraith at the celebration. A wine glass functioned as her bulwark, her attention fixed on her closest friend Sophie, the radiant nexus of the affair. Witnessing Sophie's unadulterated joy served only to intensify the hollow resonance of Lily's own isolation. As Sophie's new husband, Michael, drew her onto the dance floor, a familiar, spectral ache constricted Lily's chest. It was not jealousy, but the profound weight of her own alterity. Immersed in such casual self-assurance, she felt her own inadequacy as a palpable shroud. Her fingers began a subconscious ritual, adjusting her sleeve to obscure the raised tissue on her left wrist, a permanent cartography of a past ordeal, a trigger in perpetual standby. She commanded herself to perform normalcy. Sophie, effervescent with champagne and happiness, drifted toward her. Her perception, always acute, immediately registered the anxious manipulation of the sleeve. What thing? Lily feigned ignorance, a well-rehearsed stratagem. Sophie termed it her vanishing act, the tendency to recede into the background. She looped her arm through Lily's, a gentle but insistent tether. I'm not really a dancer. You're not really a recluse either, Sophie retorted softly, but you persist in the attempt. A faint smile formed on Lily's lips. This is your wedding. I'm content to simply witness your happiness. Sophie's face softened as a shared memory of a hospital room from 3 years prior flickered between them. I understand crowds are difficult for you. I know events like this can feel like submersion, but make me a promise. Of course. Promise you'll find one positive thing tonight. A conversation with a stranger, one dance, a single moment where you aren't plotting your escape routes. The words were a precise strike against her hypervigilance. You are worthy of good things, Lily, even if you cannot believe it. Before a response could form, Sophie was reclaimed by her husband, leaving Lily unmoored once more. A persistent, corrosive thought surfaced. Every positive experience is merely a precursor to suffering, a lesson seared into her by trauma. She was turning to withdraw when she perceived it, the distinct prickle of being watched, activating every defensive system she possessed. Hyper-awareness had been her baseline since the attack, but this was different. This was predatory. The acute paranoia from her trauma had subsided after 2 years of therapy, yet this was no psychological artifact. A deliberate scan of the room located him. He was positioned by the bar, whiskey in hand, observing her without concealment or apology. Most people avert their eyes when discovered. He did not. His stare was a calculated assertion of power. He was tall, exceeding 6 feet, with dark hair and features more severe than conventionally handsome. He possessed a sharp jawline, a strong nose, and eyes she could not decipher from this distance. His tailored black suit signaled significant wealth, yet it was not his physical presence that accelerated her heart rate. It was the quality of his gaze. It contained no pity, no social awkwardness, not even lust. It was the detached, analytical focus of a man disassembling an object to understand its mechanics. Protocol dictated she look away, to retreat inward. Instead, in a surprising moment of defiance, she met his stare. The corner of his mouth shifted upward in a gesture that resembled approval. He then began to move in her direction, his trajectory calculated and unwavering. Panic constricted her. Her knuckles grew white around her wineglass. "You are Sophie's friend." His voice was a low baritone, deeper than she'd anticipated. "The florist." A flicker of surprise crossed her features. "How did you—" "Sophie has mentioned you all week. Said her best friend was personally handling the floral arrangements as no one else could be trusted with the roses." He had prior intelligence. He gestured to a nearby display of cream roses and white peonies. "I assume this is your work." "It is." The word emerged with more stability than she felt. "I have a shop in Brooklyn, Petals and Thorns." "Vincent," he extended his hand. "I am Michael's cousin, the one who is not mentioned at family dinners." The disarming humor was effective. A genuine smile broke through as they touched hands. His grip was warm, solid, and brief. "Are you truly that problematic?" "That is a subjective assessment." An unreadable emotion crossed his face. "But I will endeavor to behave tonight. Scout's honor." "Were you a Boy Scout?" "Categorically no." His directness elicited a laugh, and she felt a portion of her tension dissipate. His candor was a relief. "What is it you do, Vincent, when not fulfilling the role of the family pariah?" "Import-export." The response was too polished, too practiced. Olive oil, wine, similar commodities. The description was simple, but it did not align with the man himself. It was a fabrication. Her own trauma had made her an expert in detecting the fissures in a performance. She had been engaged in one for years. The deception remained in the space between them, but she could differentiate between a need for privacy and an intent to mislead. It was possible he had his own wounds to conceal. "That sounds compelling," she offered, participating in the social script, his lips curved in acknowledgement. "You are an exceptionally poor liar." "I beg your pardon. The import-export business is mundane." He was violating conversational norms, forcing an intimacy she had not consented to. "You were being courteous." He raised his drink, his eyes fixed on hers over the glass. "I recognized the gesture, but pretense is unnecessary with me." The statement was designed to position him as exceptional. A flush of heat rose up her neck. "I wasn't." "You were. It is understandable. Most people are." He set his glass down. "May I tell you what I find compelling?" "What?" "How an individual with such an aversion to crowds could create something this beautiful for a friend." He indicated the flowers. "That requires either love or madness." "A definitive combination of both," she admitted. "Sophie required April roses. I sourced them from 3 vendors and monitored them for 2 weeks. I had minimal sleep, but the task was completed." He knew she would succeed. His gaze remained steady and evaluative, making her feel like a specimen under examination. He then posed the question that dismantled her composure. When did someone last extend that kind of effort for you? The inquiry struck her with the force of a physical impact. Her throat tightened. The answer was never. Not outside of a clinical setting where she was a patient to be managed, a condition to be stabilized. But she could not articulate this to him, could not detail how she had learned to minimize her presence to avoid being a liability. She required an exit. Her movement, a subtle telegraph of retreat, was an attempt to escape his penetrating stare. Sophie's name was her pretext, a defense he dissected with surgical precision. She's at the dessert table. Your brief departure will go unnoticed, he assessed. You're surveying the area. A conditioned response, he noted, his expression darkening. My work demands constant threat assessment of all variables. Here? At a wedding? A threat is a constant possibility. Vincent's tone was dispassionate, yet Lily detected the cold diagnosis embedded within his logic. In him, she saw a reflection of her own pathology, a life defined by anticipating catastrophe. Just for tonight, however, I am simply Michael's cousin, with the duty of asking you to dance. Her heart faltered. That is not something I do. Nor I. Your reason, Sophie's assessment was correct. You deserve a single moment of amnesty tonight. His hand extended, an offering, not a command. Perhaps I do too. Lily's gaze fell to his hand, noting the calloused knuckles that contradicted his proclaimed profession. She contrasted his absolute stillness with her own tremor. Sophie's mandate, the concept of a temporary sanctuary, became a tangible possibility. She considered the marks concealed by lavender silk and speculated on the wounds his suit disguised. A single dance, the words escaped her. Then I will vanish. Agreed. His grasp was a firm, warm anchor as he guided her to the dance floor's slow, formalized ballet. He positioned them with practiced ease, one hand on her waist, and began to lead. The man was a fraud. His skill on the floor was undeniable. You misrepresent yourself, Lily observed, reflecting his own analysis back. A low rumble from his chest was his reply, a laugh held in check. I've had reasons to learn. They danced without speaking as Lily excavated her memory, pinpointing the origin point of her reflexive recoil from human contact. His hand on her waist provided ballast, not possession. His grip was a suggestion, allowing for immediate disengagement. The impulse to flee was absent. May I pose a question? Vincent's voice was a confidential whisper. Tell me if I cross a boundary. Understood. The sleeves. It's a repetitive gesture. His thumb traced the interior of her wrist, the shielded one, a contact barely perceptible. You were harmed. The statement was an indictment, not an inquiry. The breath seized in Lily's lungs as her frame stiffened. Without pause, Vincent stabilized her, maintaining the dance's rhythm, enclosing her in a protective space. Yes, she conceded, the admission now an inevitability. His presence seemed to demand a confession, as if dishonesty were a structural impossibility around him. The question of justice, delivered in a detached tone, was not an inquiry but a judgment. Lily perceived the cold steel beneath the words, a latent threat that forced her to observe his features. His face was a study in control, but his eyes had become flat voids, instilling a profound dread. She offered the verdict. He was imprisoned, incarcerated. His quiet approval, acceptable, was punctuated by a subtle pressure at her waist. They completed the dance in silence, his departure marked by a formal bow that was not comical, but instead unnervingly precise. I thank you for the dance, Lily Morgan. Thank you for... The sentiment remained unspoken, for acknowledging her existence, for bypassing questions that had no safe answers, for a momentary belief she was not irreparably fractured. A genuine smile altered Vincent's face, briefly erasing the menace etched there. For being an inefficient liar. "You are welcome." He receded into the anonymous crowd, leaving Lily with a racing pulse and the warm phantom of his touch. An hour later, she located Sophie, effervescent with joy and wine, anchored to Michael as if to prevent his dematerialization. "There you are." Sophie seized Lily's arm, pulling her into a conspiratorial huddle. "I saw you with him. Who was he?" "He was magnetic." "Did you acquire his contact information? Please confirm you did." "Michael's cousin," Lily replied, her equilibrium still compromised. "Vincent?" An unspoken, dense communication passed between Michael and Sophie, a signal Lily could not decode. Michael's smile was fixed, but tension formed around his eyes. Vincent attended. He scanned the area. "I did not see him. He identified himself as your cousin. He is. It's simply—" Michael exchanged another glance with Sophie. "Vincent does not partake in family functions. Our paths have diverged." "Why is that?" "Different trajectories," Michael stated, his tone a carefully built fortification. "Different decisions." "I would not." "Look, he is not a malevolent person, but he is complex. It might be prudent to erase the encounter from your memory." Yet Lily could not the way his eyes had inventoried her, as if positioning a vital piece within a larger schema. Not the chill in his voice when he probed for justice, not the sensation of being truly perceived for the first time in an age. She returned to her apartment above the flower shop, engaged the deadbolt twice rather than her customary 3 times, and contemplated the ceiling. Different trajectories, different decisions. What warning was encoded in that phrase? The shop's Monday stillness mirrored Lily's own mood. A late night crafting a funeral arrangement had left her feeling frayed. The petals of Sophie's wedding roses were browning at the edges as Lily dismantled them for compost. The bell above the door chimed. "Be right there," Lily announced without looking up. "Just allow me a moment to—" "There is no urgency." Her gaze snapped upward. Vincent occupied the doorway of her shop, an austere figure set against the soft palette of florals and aged wood. He was dressed in denim and a fine, dark sweater, clutching a paper coffee cup in each hand. "Coffee," he declared, raising one. "I was uncertain of your preference, so I procured it black, with cream and sugar provided separately." The barista considered my methodology unusual, but I assessed it as the optimal approach for risk management. Lily remained immobile, staring. Her reaction is a physiological manifestation of profound distrust. The question, "Why are you here?" is less a query and more a challenge to a breach in her defenses. Vincent's offering of coffee functions as a disarming maneuver, a Trojan horse of normalcy. He places the cups with a deliberate precision, mirroring his calculated approach to this emotional territory. His rationale, that she is a significant data point, reframes a romantic impulse as a logical imperative. This is how he processes the world. He recognizes her scrutiny, addressing the unsettling nature of his pursuit, yet frames it as a necessary step in his investigation of a compelling anomaly. Her. And so, he stands as an unsettling presence, extending a simple peace offering. The act of accepting the coffee is a crucial concession for Lily, a strategic movement of her hands to mask the tremor in her resolve. The coffee's origin, a costly local cafe, signifies a deliberate investment on his part. Her protest, "This is not normal," is an appeal to the predictable world she has constructed. His response, "I would like to learn," repositions her not as a conquest, but as a text to be understood. Here we see the core of her conflict, a deep-seated belief that she is unworthy of such gestures, a conditioning born from a history where every gain was tethered to an unbearable cost. "Listen." The single word bisected the shop's quiet. Vincent leaned against the counter, a performance of casualness that seemed meticulously rehearsed. "I understand this is atypical. My directness is a crude instrument, and I am certain it is triggering every defense mechanism you possess, but I am unskilled at social maneuvering, and I suspect you are as well. Therefore, I will be transparent. Transparent about what? I have been unable to cease thinking about you since Saturday. The way you smiled during Sophie's dance, the way you adjusted your sleeves when unobserved, the way you danced with me despite being terrified." His dark gaze held hers. "I do not know what this is. Potentially nothing. Potentially everything. But I wish to investigate. I believe you do as well." Lily's fingers clenched, the ceramic of her cup nearing its breaking point. "I am not seeking a relationship." "Nor am I." "Then what is the objective?" "Coffee, dialogue. We analyze the outcome." A slight shrug animated Vincent's frame. No pressure, no predetermined goal. Simply two individuals, both poor dissemblers, becoming acquainted. It was illogical. He was illogical. The entire circumstance was, yet Lily felt her own head issue a treacherous nod. "Okay," she murmured. "Coffee." A smile bloomed on Vincent's face, transforming its harsh geography into something else. "Yes?" "Merely coffee. The most valuable intelligence I have acquired all week." He took his own cup, lifting it in a small salute. "To inefficient liars and the opportunity to alter our heading." Lily met his cup with hers, attempting to suppress thoughts of sharp objects and the high cost of fortune. She opted to disregard how Vincent's gaze systematically charted the shop's exits and lines of sight, a repetition of the surveillance she had observed at the party. It was simpler than reconciling the man who delivered coffee to a near stranger with the man whose hands were calloused by a life absent from his narrative. Rain started to fall, and he remained for 3 hours. His appearances settled into a silent cadence, a pattern of reinforcement she felt incapable of resisting. On Tuesday, he brought pastries from a bakery she had once casually named. On Wednesday, he arrived without offerings but assisted with her tasks, moving with an astonishing competence for a self-professed amateur. On Thursday, he appeared with more coffee and a well-used volume on botanical illustration acknowledging her passion. By Friday morning, she finally summoned the will to protest, even as her hands betrayed her, by taking the cup he presented. "This will generate gossip," she stated. "Irrelevant," he replied. Turning from her, Vincent studied an orchid. "These are a new edition." "They were delivered yesterday," she affirmed. "A gift exchanged between lovers, a memento of their first encounter." Lily consumed the coffee, prepared precisely to her taste, a preference he had silently documented on Tuesday. His observational skill was total. "Do you not have more pressing engagements than to linger in a floral shop all week?" "Currently, no." Vincent pivoted, leaning against the window. The light shifted on his face, transmuting his brown eyes to a bronze hue. "Business is quiet. In the import-export industry, correct. That is a falsehood. And your capacity to perceive it is infallible." His expression shifted, a blend of amusement and something akin to respect. "Most individuals lack that faculty." Lily placed her cup down, her arms forming a defensive barrier across her chest. 5 days of his campaign had emboldened her to issue a challenge. What is your actual profession? I have told you. Primarily Mediterranean goods. Vincent. A weighty silence filled the space, punctuated by a passing vehicle. A muscle worked in his jaw, evidence of some internal negotiation. My family holds business interests in this city, he stated, his diction exact. Logistics, transport, some property holdings. I assist in managing those interests. That is not the entire truth. It is not. His gaze remained steady, unyielding. But it is all I can provide you at this time. If that is inadequate, instruct me to depart, and I will. It was an explicit warning, a clearly marked exit. She should have accepted it. But after 3 years of erecting fortifications around herself, Vincent had, in 5 days, located the single, infinitesimal fissure in her defenses. Acceptable, she heard her own voice declare. Acceptable. It is acceptable. You may remain, for now. Her hands returned to the coffee cup, a familiar mooring. But I am maintaining a ledger of your evasions. A barely visible release of tension in Vincent's shoulders signaled his relief. He had wagered on her reaction and prevailed. A reasonable stipulation. He moved from the window to her side of the counter. May I pose a question? That is contingent on the question. The scars on your wrists. You claimed another person was responsible. Vincent's cadence shifted, the precise analytical quality dissolving into something softer. You omitted the agent of the act, the motive, and the aftermath. Her fingers found the fabric of her left sleeve, a somatic echo of memory she could not quell. That constitutes multiple inquiries. An answer is not required. I am merely... He paused, weighing his words with an uncharacteristic gravity. I must comprehend the architecture of your trauma, the specific triggers, the variables I represent. A flawed phrasing. My objective? He swept a hand through his hair, his composure fracturing for an instant. My objective is to prevent my own ignorance from becoming a source of harm to you. Lily observed him, this chaotic variable introduced into her meticulously ordered existence. His raw unease seemed authentic, fissuring his confident exterior to expose an honest current beneath. His name was David, she stated, her voice a low, taut frequency. The duration of the relationship was 8 months. Initially, he was a study in perfection. Charismatic, devoted, the embodiment of my perceived desires. The words felt like shards of glass in her mouth, yet she continued. Then emerged the pathology, possession, a profound and baseless jealousy. Every communication required justification. My attire was subject to his approval. My very being necessitated his consent. Vincent became a portrait of absolute stillness. With his hands braced on the counter, she saw the blood drain from his knuckles, leaving them white. I attempted to sever the connection. She stopped, drawing a measured breath. His response was not favorable. He breached the security of my apartment. He was armed with a blade. My recollection of the event is fragmented. I regained consciousness in a hospital, my wrists wrapped in gauze, Sophie at my side. Were the injuries self-inflicted? Vincent's query was a near whisper, almost consumed by the silence. The lacerations? No. He created them. The scene was constructed to imitate a suicide. Lily compelled herself to meet his gaze. The authorities found him in his vehicle nearby, intoxicated. He is serving 12 years for attempted homicide and other offenses I do not name. A significant pause distended the air. When Vincent finally spoke, his voice was the same detached, clinical instrument from the wedding, the tone of another man entirely. 12 years is an insufficient sentence. I concur, Lily said, but it was the judgment rendered. Upon his release, he will no longer constitute a threat to me. I have enacted countermeasures. Lily's hand went to her sleeve, an old, ingrained gesture of self-soothing. A protective order, a new residence, a new number. My location is unknown to him. Good. Vincent's hands relaxed fractionally. That is a satisfactory outcome. The brutal confession hung in the void between them. Lily braced herself for the inevitable tide of pity. She anticipated the social withdrawal that invariably follows the revelation of such profound trauma. Instead, Vincent regarded her precisely as he had before, as a complex problem he was resolved to understand. "Thank you," he said at last, "for disclosing that. You inquired. I did. And you are under no obligation to respond." Vincent raised his coffee cup. "For what it's worth, I assess you to be exceptionally resilient." "I am not." "You are. You endured a catastrophic event and constructed a life from its remnants. You established an enterprise. You preserved a critical friendship. You relearned how to function in the world." His stare was resolute. "That demands a form of courage most individuals are never required to summon." A tightness constricted Lily's throat. She looked down, struggling to contain a sudden acute sting behind her eyes. "I still verify the door locks 3 times before sleeping." "As do I." "You do?" "An old pattern," Vincent offered, his tone deliberately lighter. "Different genesis, presumably, but an identical ritual. We all possess our compulsions." "What are yours?" "My compulsions? You are now cognizant of mine. Reciprocity seems equitable." Vincent produced a smile that did not register in his eyes. "I harbor profound issues with trust. My baseline assumption is that all parties have malicious intent. I sleep perhaps 4 hours a night." He paused. "And I have a tendency to resolve issues with capital or coercion, even when such methods are inappropriate." "That is an uncommonly specific observation." "It is." Vincent finished his coffee, crushing the empty cup in his fist. "But you have already acknowledged that you are tracking my evasions." "A valid point," Lily conceded. They both maintained hidden territories, an equilibrium of secrets. The exchange was terminated by the arrival of another customer. As Lily served them, Vincent receded into the shop's ambiance. He had vanished by the time the person departed 20 minutes later. He had left a message on a receipt, the script suggesting a privileged education. "Dinner tomorrow? Only if your tolerance for risk is considerable." Stowing the note, Lily suppressed a grin. He guided her to a small, clandestine Italian establishment that accepted no public reservations. Inside, however, the staff knew Vincent, receiving him with familial warmth and seating them immediately. "This seems rather extravagant," Lily remarked as they were led to a private table. "Are you affiliated with half of New York?" "Only with the individuals who are significant." Vincent held her chair. "Besides, the owner's grandmother prepares the world's finest carbonara. This is a verifiable fact." "I'm not even certain I enjoy carbonara." "You will." His confidence was not misplaced. The dish, served 40 minutes later and utterly perfect, elicited an involuntary sound of pure contentment from Lily. Vincent observed her, his own satisfaction evident. "I was correct." "Fine, you were correct." Lily took another bite. "This is phenomenal." Rose has prepared it that way for 60 years. Some things require no improvement. They concluded the meal in a state of comfortable silence, the energy of the full restaurant feeling like a distant world from their secluded corner. "May I pose a question?" The subject Lily ceased eating and cleaned her lips. She framed it as a petition he could deny. An equitable exchange, she reasoned, for all of her own inquiries. Michael indicated you two were not close, that you followed divergent paths. Her delivery was clinical, more inquisitive than accusatory. What was his meaning? The subject, Vincent, displayed a brief, faint tremor in his jaw before his expression became neutral. "Michael is a good man," he replied, "who works in finance, has a lovely wife, a home in Park Slope, entirely normal, quite respectable. And you are not? Normal? No. Respectable?" The edge of Vincent's mouth tilted in a way that was not a smile. "That is a subjective assessment. I am the one assessing. Then no, not in the slightest." He raised his wine, taking a measured sip. "My family's enterprise is not the sort detailed in the financial pages. We operate with discretion, and we manage the types of problems others will not address." Lily felt her heart rate begin to accelerate. "What types of problems?" "The kind that ought not be discussed over a meal of this quality." Vincent lowered his glass. "I apologize. I realize that is not a true answer." "It is an answer," she countered, "just not the one I sought." "Would knowing more alter this?" His gesture encompassed the dynamic between them. "This thing we have." Lily weighed his query. Not long ago, her answer would have been an emphatic yes, a reflexive flight from any danger to the secure life she had engineered. But observing Vincent now, the candlelight flickering in his eyes, she knew she was too far submerged for a clean extraction. "I lack sufficient data," she confessed. "Possibly." A fair response. Vincent leaned back, analyzing her. "For the record, my intention is to insulate you from all of it. The business, the complications, I want this to be normal. Is that a possibility? To maintain that separation? I will make the attempt." The muscle in his jaw tightened. "You have been damaged enough by others, Lily. I refuse to become one of them." The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it ignited a cold, somatic dread, the type of grim vow only made by one who intimately understands the magnitude of damage they can inflict. Vincent let us select a new topic. He signaled a waiter, ordering dessert for them both. "Tell me about your store. How long have you owned it?" Lily permitted the change in subject, experiencing a mix of relief and frustration. They spoke of floral suppliers, the difficulties of retail, and a challenging landlord. Vincent posed intelligent questions, recalled minor details she had previously shared, and made her laugh with anecdotes of how his associate Rose's Nonna intimidated food critics. But beneath the effortless performance, Lily perceived the gravity of the unspoken, the secrets Vincent protected, the latent danger he embodied, and the reality that she was developing feelings for a man she scarcely knew or comprehended. The tiramisu possessed a flawless, airy consistency. Lily consumed every bite, disregarding the encroaching sense of peril. The subsequent 3 weeks progressed as a sequence of brief encounters and controlled disclosures. Vincent would appear at her shop most mornings bearing coffee and occasionally groceries, books, or thin pretexts to see her. He took her to establishments without signage, isolated parks, and a midnight film in Queens. Lily discovered that Vincent was fluent in Italian and proficient in Greek, had no university education but was immensely well-read, and bore a scar on his left shoulder from some unchronicled violence. She learned he was liberal with his finances, but guarded with his past, possessed a fierce protective instinct, a dark sense of humor, and that his first kiss beneath a Brooklyn street lamp had literally taken her breath. She also registered his periodic absences, lasting for hours or entire days, signaled by a concise text. Business, will call. He always did call, he always returned. But Lily observed the tension he carried in his shoulders after, the way his eyes systematically swept every environment, and the phone calls he took outside, his voice low and his jawline rigid. She never interrogated him. Vincent had established clear boundaries around his non-disclosures, and Lily guarded her own internal landscapes. Sectors of her mind kept sealed even from his discerning gaze. It should have felt dysfunctional to build a connection upon a framework of mutual concealment. Model. This experience felt more authentic than any part of Lily's life in recent memory. You are involved with someone. Sophie's voice cut through her reverie. Over coffee, distinctly inferior to Vincent's artisanal brews, Sophie had been conducting a focused study of her for 20 minutes. What gives you that impression? Lily's performance of innocence was utterly unconvincing. You have gazed at your phone 3 times, you are wearing makeup on a Tuesday, and you possess that certain expression. What expression? The I am falling for a man and I'm deeply afraid expression. Sophie leaned in, her face alive with intrigue. I require details. Who is he? Lily paused. Her bond with Sophie was built on a foundation of complete transparency. A friendship started in their sophomore year over terrible cafeteria meals and even worse partners. Yet Vincent felt separate, a truth to be guarded. Speaking his name aloud seemed enough to shatter the enchantment. It is recent, she conceded at last. I'm not prepared to label it. Is his name Vincent? Lily's gaze shot upward. How could you possibly? Michael noted he inquired about you. You shared a dance at the wedding, and your current expression just proved it. Sophie was radiant. I was certain. I observed how he watched you that evening. It's a very complex dynamic. The meaningful ones always are. Sophie's smile slightly dimmed. But Lil, I must inquire. Are you protected? Michael implied Vincent is engaged in some very serious dealings. What sort of serious dealings? He remained elusive, only stating that Vincent is not a conventional man, that his family possesses a particular reputation. Sophie's hand moved to cover Lily's. I have faith in you. I just need your reassurance that you are being cautious. Lily recalled Vincent's gentle hands and his predatory gaze, his absurd fabrication about olive oil, and the detached coldness in his voice when he had asked if her ex, David, had ever atoned for his actions. She remembered his habit of marking exits, his hushed phone calls, and his sudden disappearances. I'm being cautious, she affirmed. The statement was not entirely factual, but neither was it a complete fabrication. And I can protect myself. I am aware. Sophie squeezed her hand once more. Just give me your word. You will tell me if circumstances become strange. You are not to face this by yourself. Lily gave her word. They shifted the topic to Sophie's career, a colleague of Michael's, their summer itinerary. But Lily could not dismiss the phrases. Serious dealings, a reputation? What did that imply? That night, in the dark of her bedroom illuminated by her phone, Lily finally did what she had avoided for weeks. She searched the internet for Vincent Russo. The information was scarce, a handful of mentions in corporate documents that identified him as a consultant. A photograph from a charity event 5 years ago captured Vincent in a tuxedo looking indifferent, beside an older gentleman named Antonio Russo, identified as a philanthropist. Nothing seemed illicit or sensational, but the profound absence of a digital history was itself a significant indicator. Ordinary individuals leave a trail. Vincent was essentially an apparition. Lily was still focused on the screen when a message made her phone vibrate. "Are you awake?" She should have feigned sleep, should have heeded Sophie's caution and established some distance. Instead, her fingers typed, "Yes." "Is there a problem? May I come see you? At this hour, it is almost midnight. I realize that. I have to see you, please." The inclusion of "please" was a dissonant element that constricted something around Lily's heart. Vincent did not request. He stated his intentions and awaited her consent. This felt abnormal, desperate. "Come to my apartment. Let me know when you're here." He appeared 20 minutes later, and Lily knew instantly that his world had been violently disrupted. His hair was in disarray, his knuckles were abraded and raw, and a darkness in his gaze made her recoil as she unlatched the door. Vincent registered her retreat, pausing at the doorway with his hands partially raised. "My apologies. This was an error in judgment. What has occurred?" Lily took his hand, the injured one, and drew him inside, securing the door behind him. "Vincent, what has happened to your hand?" "A business discussion that did not end well." He attempted a smile, but the expression was a fractured imitation. "The other party is in a considerably worse state. That is not amusing, I am aware." Vincent allowed her to guide him to the couch, where he sank down as if his very structure had failed. "I apologize. I do not present this condition with grace." "What condition?" "The condition where I permit myself to be witnessed when I am utterly undone." He examined his scraped knuckles, moving his fingers experimentally. "My procedure is to manage my affairs, then arrive with coffee as if nothing is amiss." Lily went to the bathroom, bringing back a medical kit. Seating herself next to him, she took his hand. "This will sting." His tolerance for pain was extraordinary. Lily dressed the wounds on his hand, a conscious denial of their violent origin. Vincent observed her, his respiration steadying. He then executed a familiar tactic, framing his secrecy as a shield constructed for her benefit. "I will not permit you to be put into jeopardy," he stated. "Do you see?" She consented without pause, but her expression questioned her role in his world. Lily had to understand she was more than a haven from his tempests, but a fixed point in his existence. He confirmed her importance immediately. Vincent started to idealize her, declaring she was the only anchor of authenticity in his modern life. He depicted his other existence as a terrain of inherited responsibilities and empty duties. When she inquired about this world, a profound quiet settled before he answered. "My family is a fulcrum, Lily. We are the mediators when the official channels fail. The work is not legal, it is perilous, and it has been so for 3 generations. Lily felt a current of undiluted terror pass through her. She gave a name to the specter in the room. Organized crime. He clarified his function as logistics and dispute arbitration. And the recent incident? A business associate attempted to unilaterally alter their terms. It was a severe miscalculation. Vincent's face became completely devoid of emotion, exposing a capacity for chilling force. I ensured they grasped their error. A typical individual would have run, but Lily started to reconstruct the entire framework. She held on to his past tenderness, a psychological barrier against the stark and horrifying truth. "Why are you revealing this to me now?" she asked, her voice nearly inaudible. He asserted that his disclosure was a vital truth required before they could proceed. His hand located hers, his thumb drawing calming patterns on her skin, a point of stability in the gale of his confession. "I am developing a serious emotional investment in you," he said, "and you must understand the implications of that before you reciprocate." The declaration was a physical jolt. Lily found herself without words, unable to merge the two versions of the man before her. "My reality is lethal, and to be with me is to exist in its penumbra. I will endeavor to shelter you. I will always shield you, but I cannot promise my shield will not break," he continued, his voice taut with effort. He presented the option: depart now with no obligations, or remain and embrace the blight attached to his identity. Lily gazed at their connected hands, his damaged, hers long marked by old scars, a flawlessly tragic union. She considered every old hurt, every friend's admonition, every impulse to flee. She balanced it against Vincent's methodical gentleness, a kindness so potent it had created an unbreakable connection. "I am so profoundly frightened," she at last exhaled. "A reasonable response," he conceded, "but I am not going anywhere." He witnessed the conflict in her expression, where relief battled against fear. "I will remain, for the time being," she specified. "If the risk grows too great, I will inform you. Is that our agreement?" "Our agreement." He drew her into a hug, and she felt the powerful tremors of his relief. Lily reciprocated his hold with equal force. "Thank you," he murmured, again and again. They remained that way, in a quiet recognition that the foundation between them had been permanently altered. The metropolis droned its nocturnal melody as Lily completed the nightly task of securing her home. She returned to bed where Vincent was sleeping, their fingers still woven together. The following morning, she awoke to see him already prepared for conflict, his tone on the phone sharp and deadly. "The reason is irrelevant to me. A 30% deficit in the delivery indicates either a thief or a fool. Resolve it." He stopped. "No, I require names before the evening. Ensure they are verified. Because if this situation deteriorates, it will be your neck, not mine." He terminated the conversation with a decisive sound. His whole posture appeared to relax as he noticed her observing him. "Good morning." Vincent's expression changed, the frost of his command dissolving into a practiced affection. "I had hoped you would remain asleep." "You were unsuccessful," she remarked, moving around the space to calm her own unease. That sounded rather fraught. "Business," he replied, closing the space to fortify the boundary between his worlds with a kiss. "It is not something that should concern you." But it did. To be aware of his world was one matter, to hear its violence in action was quite another. "Wait." Vincent guided her to face him, his touch a gentle form of control. "I understand that was unsettling to overhear. Is your profession always so aggressive?" "At times. When individuals disregard the established protocols." His jaw clenched. "I favor negotiation, but some individuals only comprehend the vernacular of violence." Lily recalled his bruised knuckles from the unsuccessful negotiation. "And yesterday was not negotiation. That was a behavioral modification," he clarified, his gaze fixed on a distant point. "My world operates on a code, Lily. Transgressions are rectified. It is not a personal matter, it is merely the structure. It feels intensely personal to the one being rectified." "Possibly." His hands fell away from her shoulders. "But the other option is anarchy, a reality without repercussions. Our method provides order. Lily remembered the man who assaulted her, who was given a risible sentence of only 12 years. She perceived the grim parallel between their realities. Vincent's was simply more forthright about its own savagery. "I have an engagement," he said quietly, "an appointment at noon, which I am unable to reschedule." The transaction's true cost became a lingering question after his departure. That debt was called in 3 days later, a Thursday. As she secured her floral boutique, 2 figures materialized in the entryway, their forms like brutalist architecture, monuments to a life of coercion. The lead figure's leather jacket was paired with a smile that never reached his vacant eyes. "We're closed," Lily stated, her fingers inching toward her phone. "I reopen at 9. Our concern is not with the flora." The first man advanced while his associate sealed her path of retreat. "We have come regarding Vincent Russo." A primal scream ignited within Lily's psyche. She maintained a placid facade, her phone a fragile anchor. "I'm not familiar with that name." The denial was a transparent failure. The second man, marked by a scar bisecting his cheek, presented a phone displaying a recent image of her with Vincent. "You make a charming pair," he mocked, a chill of dread piercing her composure. "What is your purpose here?" A simple dialogue. The man in leather rested on her counter. "Vincent has become an obstacle to our employer's enterprise. It was thought his companion might encourage a more amenable posture." "As I said, I don't." "Cease the deception." His tone fractured into shards of ice, the affable veneer dissolving. "We have observed you for 2 weeks. We are aware of your habits and your residence." "We possess total knowledge of you, Lily Morgan." The intimacy of her name from his mouth felt like a trespass, resurrecting the specter of her former tormentor, David. Yet these were not solitary hunters. They were corporate agents of fear. "Vincent does not dictate my actions," she countered, her voice preternaturally stable. "Intimidation is not an effective tool against me." "This is not intimidation," the man clarified. "It is a proposition. Instruct your partner to withdraw from our deliveries. Have him abandon his territorial ambitions in Queens. Instruct him to concern himself with his own affairs." Her silence was met by the man called Scar reaching inside his jacket. Lily recoiled, anticipating steel. He instead produced a dossier, letting it fall onto the counter. "This is your life. Your health records from 3 years prior, architectural plans of your home, and intelligence on your associates, Sophie and Michael." Scar's tone was surgically detached. "We avoid crude violence, Lily, but should Vincent remain an issue, we will begin divesting him of his holdings, beginning with you." The file lay between them, an artifact of her compromised safety. They had excavated her most profound traumas and repurposed them as leverage. David, the asylum, every phantom she had struggled to exorcise was now a tool they wielded. "Depart!" The order was born from a fury she believed David had extinguished. "Exit my establishment immediately." "We are merely couriers, my dear." "I commanded you to leave." She seized the dossier and hurled it toward them. The contents cascaded, a fragmented mosaic of her violated privacy. "You cannot invade my space and menace me. I will not be your collateral. Go before I contact the authorities." The leather-clad man scoffed. "The police! You believe they offer sanctuary. They are either compensated by him or willfully ignorant." He lifted his hands in feigned capitulation. "Our task is complete. The communication is delivered. The subsequent chapter is yours to write." They departed, the doors chime, a perversely bright farewell as Lily's shaking hands secured the lock. She collapsed amid the ruins of her identity, her respiration faint, echoing the terror of the institution. The call was a reflex. The device was already clutched. Vincent responded on the second ring. "Greetings. I was just—" "They visited my shop." Lily's voice fractured. "Two of them. They possessed all my information, Vincent. Photographs, my health records. They menaced Sophie. They indicated that if you fail to retreat, they will—" "What is your position?" His voice transmuted into something cold and unyielding. "Lily, verify your location." "The boutique. I'm here. It's secured, however." "Remain inside. Do not permit entry to anyone but me. My arrival is in 10 minutes. She registered a car door's slam, an engine igniting. "Are you injured? Were you touched?" "No. The assault was psychological," they presented. Lily's eyes fell upon the images strewn across the floor. The photographs documented her mundane existence, evidence of prolonged clandestine observation. "They have been monitoring me for weeks." A cascade of furious Italian poured through the receiver. 10 minutes, Lily. Remain stationary for 10 minutes. He materialized in 7. The sound of protesting rubber preceded a firm rap on the door, and she granted him entry. He instantly drew her into a severe embrace, one hand securing her head, the other cinching her waist. "Forgive me," he rasped into her hair. "I am profoundly sorry. I ought to have foreseen this. I have failed in my duty to protect you. You gave me your word. You swore to shield me from this." Lily wrenched away, rage eclipsing her terror. "They are aware of Sophie Vincent, her location, her profession. If she is injured as a result of me, she will not be touched. You will not be touched." He framed her face with his hands, compelling her gaze. "Any individual who contemplates menacing you, I will eliminate. Is that understood? Any individual." "That is not a resolution." She pressed against his torso, carving out a space for clarity. "You cannot solve this with death. They have my address. They have my entire existence. How can I possibly reclaim a sense of security?" A nerve twitched in Vincent's jaw. "Gather your things. You will stay with me while this is resolved." "No." "Lily." "Categorically no. I refuse to be displaced from my home and my livelihood because criminals perceive me as your vulnerability." She wrapped her arms around herself, attempting to quell her tremors. "You spoke of a code in your sphere. Is this in accordance with the code?" "This is a violation." His expression became glacial. "Non-combatants, relatives, they are inviolable. Our adversaries are either reckless or foolish, perhaps both." He produced his phone, his digits flying over the display. "I am appointing a protective team for you. My people will monitor your residence, the shop, and Sophie's home. All threats will be nullified." "Your people." A harsh, wounded laugh escaped Lily. "Last week my profession was flowers. Now I require armed escorts because of my association with you." He reacted as if physically hit. "If you desire my departure, speak the word. I will ensure your protection until this concludes, and then I will vanish from your life. Is that your wish?" He continued, "My own desires are immaterial. Your security is the priority." She observed the tension in his form, the deliberate distance he created, his hands clenched at his sides. He presented an exit, and she recognized the personal toll it would exact. Her thoughts replayed a montage of recent moments. Shared coffee, his unconditional acceptance of her history, the tenderness of his contact. She recalled his confession of affection, a singular fissure in his defenses. "I do not want you to vanish." The sentiment was uttered more gently than intended. "But I require you to resolve this, Vincent, not through further aggression. Resolve it permanently, so I am not condemned to a life of perpetual fear." "I shall!" Vincent eliminated the space between them, his hand reconnecting with hers. "You have my pledge, Lily. This concludes now." He fulfilled his vow with an alarming competence. In mere hours, 2 operatives monitored her building, one from a vehicle, another from a coffee shop. Her boutique received comparable surveillance from agents disguised as patrons. Sophie's call arrived that evening, her tone strained with anxiety. "Lily, what is happening? Michael received a call from Vincent regarding security, and a vehicle is now tailing me from my job." Lily shut her eyes, resting her forehead against the cool glass. "I apologize. I am inexpressibly sorry." "I ought to have disclosed the full situation earlier." "Disclosed what?" "Vincent is embroiled in a conflict. Certain parties believe they can employ me and you as a means to influence him." The statement felt like an admission of defeat. "I attempted to maintain a firewall to insulate you, but I failed." Sophie remained silent for a considerable time. "Are you secure?" "I am." "Vincent has personnel observing my apartment." "Excellent. That is a positive development." Lily could discern Sophie's unsteady breathing. "Michael is enraged. He was aware of Vincent's nature, but he never foresaw this kind of contagion." "I understand. I apologize." "Cease apologizing. The blame is not yours." Sophie's tone softened. "But Lil, I must know the entirety of it. What is the gravity of your situation with Vincent?" "It is grave." "Are you developing feelings for him?" Lily reflected on his sheltering embrace, his gaze that offered recognition, and the primal ownership in his tone when he guaranteed her security. "Yes." The affirmation was almost inaudible. "I believe I am." "All right, we will confront this as one." Sophie paused. "However, should he be the cause of your demise, I will be most displeased." "Duly noted." Vincent did not return that evening. A message materialized near midnight. "Resolving the issue, do not wait." Lily remained sleepless, her mind battling visions of what resolving entailed in his universe. The answer came with his arrival the following morning. He appeared haggard and somber, a fresh contusion coloring his jawline. "It is concluded." Vincent sank onto her couch, accepting the coffee she presented. "The individuals who visited you are no longer a concern." "Define that for me precisely." "It signifies that their superior was persuaded to enter retirement indefinitely." He drank some coffee, flinching as the liquid met a new laceration on his lip. "And the 2 emissaries received an education on the repercussions of targeting non-combatants." Lily sat beside him, her gaze cataloging his wounds and the fatigue etched into his features. "Were there any fatalities?" "None." He met her eyes. "The impulse was there, but it would have ignited a conflict, exposing more individuals to danger, and so she opted for a divergent path." This path, however, was defined by an axiom of his world. Ignorance is a form of survival. As he set his mug down, his hand enclosed hers, a gesture meant to signal the end of a chapter. The imminent danger had passed, and with it, the suffocating security he provided. She was, in theory, free to resume her former existence. A hollow laugh betrayed her doubt. A life, she mused, is not a garment one can simply redon, especially when its past has been weaponized by a man. Her life did not feature armed escorts. Withdrawing her hand, she pressed it to her temple, a portrait of dissonance. This is an impossible paradigm, Vincent. I am not built for a reality so fundamentally skewed. His own voice wavered. I understand. And while I repeat my promise of protection, you are correct. It is an insufficient shield. You are owed a life beyond this, beyond me. Yet she refused to be the reason for his noble self-exile. This is not about your absolution, Lily asserted, her tone constricted. It is a question of my own viability within your ecosystem, whether I can exist there without my own identity eroding. To that I have no answer, Vincent conceded with a slow, deliberate nod. What then is required? I require a cessation of hostilities, a space to process where your tenderness is not a veil for my own terror. The admission was a knot in her throat. Is that something you can grant? For what duration? I cannot say. A week, perhaps longer. She observed the pain etch itself onto his features, loathing her words for their power to wound. I am not abandoning you. I am merely testing my own fortitude against the gravity of your love. He consented. As Vincent rose, Lily witnessed the sheer force of will it took for him to pivot away from her. 1 week, he affirmed. I will initiate no contact. And Lily, she met his gaze. Yes, your decision, regardless of its nature, will be honored, no matter the personal cost. He departed, leaving her in the ringing vacuum of her apartment, with a choice she had already begun to question. The subsequent week unfolded as the longest epoch of her life. She anchored herself to the rituals of her shop, a performance of normalcy enacted through arranging blooms and serving patrons. Yet each dawn without his coffee felt like a distortion of the natural order. Each night, the silence where his voice should have been left her staring at her phone, her thumb paralyzed above his name. Sophie materialized on the third day, a single, sharp look assessing Lily's state before she was pulled into an embrace. You are a wreck, my things. The exact affirmation I craved. Lily detached herself with a frail smile. How are you navigating this? Better than you, it seems. Sophie settled onto a counter stool, appropriating Lily's cooling coffee. Michael is stable for the moment. Vincent contacted him, stated the affair was resolved. He even extended an apology for our entanglement. He did, indeed, and it was delivered with a tone of genuine regret. Sophie observed her over the cup's rim. What, then, is the strategy regarding Vincent? Regarding Vincent? Lily sighed, methodically stripping wilted petals from a rose. I am without a map. One facet of my psyche urges a flight to the farthest hills. Another registers his absence as a phantom limb. What is your intuition telling you? My intuition screams that I was a fool to engage with a man from a reality I cannot comprehend. Lily discarded the dead petals. But my heart counters that he is the first man since David to make me feel significant. You have always been significant, with or without him. Sophie's voice was gentle but unyielding. But Lil, I have observed his gaze upon you. That man would immolate this city to ensure your safety. The central question remains, can you coexist with that kind of elemental fire wielded by someone so intrinsically dangerous? I believed I could. Then those men arrived, and I was confronted with my own absolute impotence. Lily locked eyes with Sophie. What if the next crisis is one Vincent cannot contain? What if another person is harmed? Then you confront it as a unit. That is the nature of love, choosing a person in defiance of the chaos, in defiance of the fear. Sophie's hand found hers across the counter. But the choice must be made, Lil. You cannot inhabit this state of limbo indefinitely. That evening, Lily compiled a list. In one column, she detailed the arguments for departure. The peril, the secrecy, the violence that coiled just beneath his placid surface. In the other, the arguments for staying, the coffee, the silent communion, the way he perceived her scars not as damage, but as a chronicle. The tally of reasons to remain was longer. She was contemplating it, phone in hand, when a sharp rap sounded at her door. Lily's heart began a frantic percussion against her ribs. Only 5 days had elapsed, not the promised week, but perhaps his resolve had fractured. Perhaps he, peering through the peephole, she went rigid. Sophie stood in the hallway, her face a ruin of streaked mascara, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror. Lily threw the door open. "Soph, what is it? I need Vincent." Sophie collapsed into the apartment, trembling so violently she was barely upright. "You must call him immediately, please." "What has occurred?" "Michael," Sophie's voice shattered. "Michael did something foolish. He took a loan from the wrong kind of people to cover investment losses, and now they demand $200,000 by Monday, or they will." She buried her face in her hands, her body racked with sobs. "They sent photographs, Lily. Photographs of our home, our family, everything, exactly as they did with you." A profound chill permeated Lily's bones. What people? From whom did he borrow? "I lacked the specific details. Some creditor in Queens. Michael was convinced he could manage it, repay it before anyone was aware. But the interest rate is predatory, and we are sinking, and they are threatening." Sophie's fingers dug into Lily's arms. "Vincent can resolve this. He possesses the resources. He possesses the power. Please, you must ask him." A quietude settled over Lily. This was the precise nightmare she had envisioned. The membrane between her world and Vincent's finally rupturing, contaminating the lives of those she held dear. Yet this was not his transgression. This was born of Michael's desperation, of Sophie's fear, and of a brutal reality that existed independent of her awareness. "Very well." Lily retrieved her phone. "All right. I am making the call." Vincent answered before the first ring completed. "Lily, I require your help." The words emerged with a placidity she did not feel. "Sophie is here. Michael is entangled with the loan shark. They are issuing threats. The situation is critical, Vincent, truly critical. I am en route. 20 minutes. A brief silence. "Are you secure at this moment?" "Yes. We are at my apartment. Secure your door. Do not open it for anyone but me." He arrived in 15 minutes, and as Lily opened the door, a fraction of her terror dissipated. Vincent absorbed Sophie's tear-ravaged face, then Lily's, and his features hardened into granite. "Recount everything," he commanded. Sophie unleashed the entire frantic narrative. She articulated how Michael had lost nearly $300,000 in failed trades, how his desperation had led him to a contact from his gym. She described loan terms that seemed plausible until the interest began to compound on a weekly basis. She detailed their struggle to keep pace, their inevitable default, and how the intimidation began subtly before escalating into overt, ugly threats. Vincent remained motionless throughout, his expression an inscrutable mask. When Sophie concluded, he produced his phone and placed a call. "Marco, I require intelligence on all loan sharking activities in Astoria. Prioritize operations targeting individuals in finance. A pause. I am indifferent to the time. Execute. He terminated the call and redirected his attention to Sophie. From whom precisely did Michael secure the loan? I need a name. Dmitri, or a similar name, a Russian. His base of operations is above a delicatessen on Steinway Street. Sophie dabbed at her cheeks with an unsteady hand. Please, Vincent, I am aware we are not intimates. And I know this is a monumental request, but Michael is paralyzed by fear and I have no other recourse. Where is Michael at present? At home. Waiting. Sophie's voice was a mere whisper. They gave him until Monday. That is in 3 days. A muscle twitched in Vincent's jaw. Understood. Here is the protocol. You will return home to Michael and inform him that he is to cease all contact with Dmitri. No further payments, no action whatsoever until he receives my instruction. Can you ensure this? Yes, but there are no buts. I will resolve this. Vincent's tone was absolute, precluding any debate. However, Sophie, you must comprehend one thing. If I make this problem vanish, Michael is never afforded the opportunity to repeat this error. No recourse to loan sharks, no reckless speculation, no drawing you into his disasters. This is a singular intervention. Sophie nodded, her gestures sharp with desperation. I will guarantee it. I swear. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you so much. After Sophie's departure, Lily remained in her kitchen, observing Vincent as he paced, issuing directives into his phone with the same chilling authority she recalled from the night of their first meeting. When he finally concluded the call, the ensuing silence was oppressive. You cannot simply absolve Michael's debt, Lily stated softly. Vincent pivoted to confront her. And for what reason? Because that fails to address the fundamental issue. It is merely, she searched for the correct terminology. It is applying your wealth and power as a bandage to a mortal wound. What of the next person Dmitri preys upon? What of the countless others he has ensnared? That is not my concern. Yes, it is. You informed me that your world operates under a set of rules, that there are repercussions when those rules are violated. Is Dmitri not deserving of repercussions? Vincent regarded her for a long, silent interval. What is it you are asking me to do, Lily? I'm asking for a systemic solution, not a simple financial transaction, not just making Michael's problem disappear. Lily crossed her arms, projecting a courage she did not possess. Ensure Dmitri is incapable of inflicting this upon anyone, ever again. You are requesting that I dismantle his entire enterprise. I am requesting that you enact justice. A harsh, hollow laugh escaped Vincent. Justice. In my reality, such a concept is non-existent. There is only what is profitable and what is not. Strategic or foolish. Survival. I refuse to believe that. Lily advanced toward him, holding her ground. You could have eliminated the men who pursued me. You refrained because it would have ignited a war. That was the just course of action. It was tactical. It was both. She reached out, her fingers making contact with his, sensing the tension coiled within his arm. Sophie is my closest friend, Vincent. She stood as the last fixture after his own nature had alienated all others. Lily frames the moral imperative. If Dmitri is left to prey on others, to ensure Michael's safety, it becomes an unforgivable compromise. The conflict manifests on Vincent's face. He is being asked to wage war against formidable power. This is no trivial matter. He knows people could be harmed, even her. Lily, her voice quavering, rejects his attempt at compartmentalization. Their worlds are now inextricably linked through Sophie and Michael pulling him into Vincent's orbit. The choice is absolute. Eradicate the threat entirely or do nothing. Vincent withdraws his hand, his gaze averted, the tension visible in the hard line of his shoulders as he wages an internal war. His voice, when it comes, is like gravel. He clarifies that confronting Dmitri will not be a noble act. There is no honor in it, only a brutal, visceral statement that predators are not tolerated in his domain. He then confronts her with the question, can she accept that brutal reality or the consequence of inaction? Her answer, that she has endured worse, is dismissed. It is not an answer. He turns, his expression unguarded, challenging her for asking him to shatter his own code of survival for strangers in a world that consumes men like him. She asks him only to try. Lily closes the distance between them, reframing his self-perception. He once said she deserved a better man. Perhaps he deserves a life beyond the one he feels condemned to. For a long moment, Vincent merely observes her. Then he pulls her in, a desperate gesture as if she is his sole point of cohesion. All right, he whispers. I'll try. The subsequent 48 hours become a maelstrom of clandestine calls and Vincent's prolonged absences, from which he would return with new contusions and grim updates. In those 2 days, Lily's education in his world accelerates, as she absorbs the lexicon of territory, fealty, and the fragile equilibrium preventing New York's underworld from collapsing upon itself. She learns that Dmitry Volkov presides over a loan sharking operation that has decimated at least 17 families this year alone, with interest rates designed to make repayment impossible. His affiliation with a Russian outfit from Brighton Beach is tenuous. While his methods of collection are barbaric, his personal security is deeply flawed. He lacks genuine support, Vincent clarifies on Saturday morning, his kitchen table a command center of laptops and files. The Brighton Beach crew uses him for convenience. They will not go to war for him. The plan, then, is an offer. Vincent's smile is devoid of warmth. Dmitri will forgive every debt, not merely Michael's, but all of them, and then cease his operations. In return, Vincent will refrain from systematically dismantling his entire enterprise and exposing his vulnerability to every predator in the city. He anticipates Dmitri will resist, but ultimately acquiesce. Vincent closes the laptop, his assessment clinical. Men like Dmitri grasp a single concept: power. He believes he possesses it. Vincent intends to correct this fundamental miscalculation. Lily refrains from asking for the grim particulars of Vincent's methods, the image of Sophie's terror serving as a powerful deterrent. Some knowledge is a burden best left uncarried. On Sunday evening, Vincent arrives with Marco, his intelligence specialist, and another man introduced only as Tony. Their demeanor is professional, yet they exude a quiet lethality that electrifies Lily's nerves. We require your living room for several hours, Vincent states. A strategy meeting. He offers her an escape, the bedroom, or a different location entirely. Lily surveys the 3 men who now command her small apartment, their equipment and grave purpose transforming the space, the air thick with impending violence. Every instinct urges her to flee, to distance herself from the storm they are about to summon. Yet she recognizes her own complicity. She had insisted he treat the disease, not just the symptom. Witnessing the procedure feels like the minimum cost of her conviction. I'll stay, she declares, with one condition: The bedroom door remains open. Vincent's expression softens infinitesimally, a reasonable term. From her room, she audits their methodical and dispassionate planning. She overhears discussions of leverage and psychological warfare. She registers the cold precision in Vincent's voice as he maps out the deconstruction of a man's entire existence. This should have been terrifying. Instead, a strange sense of pride emerges, knowing this is not solely for Michael, but for every life Dimitri has shattered. Marco and Tony depart near midnight. Vincent finds Lily on the bed, feigning interest in a book she hasn't absorbed in pages. Tomorrow, he announces from the doorway, "My meeting with Dimitri is tomorrow afternoon." The question of danger is met with a simple acknowledgement. Very. Vincent crosses to the bed. Dimitri will not receive my offer well. He may react, but you will have backup. Marco and Tony will remain close, he confirms. And he is bringing a dossier, a comprehensive record of Dimitri's crimes, a catalog of alliances he can sever if provoked. Vincent's hand finds hers in the dim light. This is me trying, Lily, attempting this your way. I know. Her fingers tighten around his, and I am terrified. As am I, truly. Yes. A low, empty laugh escapes him. You inspire in me a desire to be better, which is the most frightening prospect in the world. To be better means to care beyond mere survival. It means possessing something you cannot stand to lose. Lily draws him down to lie with her, letting the shadows envelop them. Promise me your caution tomorrow. I promise. And promise me your return. Always. Vincent's kisses trace a path across her forehead, her cheek, her lips. I will always return to you. They fall asleep in a tangle of limbs, and Lily dreams of blossoms forcing their way through cracks in scorched earth. Monday afternoon becomes an exercise in protracted anxiety. Lily attempts to assemble a floral arrangement, but her hands tremble uncontrollably. Her focus remains fixed on her phone, awaiting a message that doesn't arrive. Sophie calls. Any news? Not yet. Lily strips leaves from a rose, wincing as a thorn pierces her thumb. The meeting is this afternoon. Michael is a mess. He wanted to be there, to, I don't know, perform some act of bravery. Sophie's voice is strained. I insisted he stay put and trust Vincent. Good. Lily watches a drop of blood purl on her thumb. This is Vincent's arena. Michael would only become collateral. Lil, a question, yes. Do you regret this? Involving yourself with him, knowing the full context of his life? If you could rewind to that wedding, would you still accept his dance? Lily recalls coffee and bruised hands, the way he interpreted her scars as strength. She considers the fear, the peril, and the acute, undeniable knowledge that loving him carried a profound cost. Yes, she says softly, I would dance with him again, even with this knowledge, especially with this knowledge. Lily sets the rose aside, observing the blood on her skin. Because he makes me feel alive, Soph. For the first time since David, I am genuinely living, not merely enduring. That's good. That's so good. Sophie's voice breaks. I just pray we all survive what's coming. At 4:30, Lily's phone vibrates. She grabs it with such haste she nearly drops it. Vincent's message is 2 words. It's done. Coming to you. Relief cascades through Lily so intensely that her legs feel weak. She starts to type her reply. Are you all right? What is all right? I am breathing, nothing broken. He appears an hour later, looking as though he has passed through a crucible but emerged whole. A dark contusion is forming on his cheekbone, and his shirt is torn, but he smiles as she opens the door. It's over, he repeats, pulling her into an embrace. Dimitri is neutralized. Every debt has been erased, every record destroyed. He will vacate New York before the week is out. How did you... It transpired he had more enemies than allies. Once I demonstrated his Brighton Beach connections were prepared to abandon him, he understood that defying me would cost him everything. Vincent's arms tightened around her, so he accepted the terms. And Michael? He is clear, as is Sophie. I made it understood to Dimitri that approaching them again would not result in another negotiation. Lily pulls back to study his face, the bruise, the fatigue, the stark victory that illuminates his eyes. You did it. You really did it. We did it. This was your strategy, remember? Vincent's fingers graze her cheek. You challenged me to be better. It seems you were correct. I could be. Does it feel good? Being better? It feels like painting a target on my back for every other predator in this city. Vincent's smile is grim. But yes, it feels good. In the frame of her doorway, backlit by a Brooklyn sunset, a fundamental truth solidifies within Lily. She perceives the violent, hazardous, and deeply intertwined nature of their bond and chooses it. Chooses him. I love you, she says, the confession escaping before she can contain it. I know it's insane and reckless and utterly terrifying, but I love you. Vincent's pupils dilate, his guarded facade crumbling into something raw and vulnerable. Say it again. I love you, Vincent Russo, with all your secrets, your dangers, and your damaged, forceful way of setting things right, Lily reiterates, a laugh escaping with the release of tension. Their admissions are sealed with a profound kiss that feels like an oath. It's been true since that first dance, he murmurs, perhaps even longer. They move inside, and Lily closes the door. For the first time in 3 years, she neglects the ritual of checking the locks, a subconscious abdication of her own defense into his care. The ensuing week is a fragile facsimile of normalcy. Michael and Sophie extend their apologies, and Vincent's constant security detail recedes. A new cadence begins, Lily in her shop and Vincent navigating his world of shadows. The tranquility in Vincent's world was, by its nature, an ephemeral construct. It fractured on a Thursday evening, 14 days after the Dimitri affair reached its conclusion. As Lily secured her shop, an anonymous number materialized on her phone. Following a moment's hesitation, she answered to a crisp male voice she did not recognize. Lily Morgan. Who is this? My name is Detective Chen, NYPD Organized Crime. A weighted silence followed. I require a discussion with you regarding Vincent Russo. A cold dread permeated her, but her nascent denial was preempted. Let's dispense with the pretense. We have had Mr. Russo under surveillance for 6 months. We are aware of you. Detective Chen's voice surgically detailed his knowledge of the Dmitry Volkov affair. Then you're aware Vincent was an asset, Lily countered, her thoughts racing for a stable position. He neutralized a man who was causing harm. The detective reframed the narrative. He dispatched a rival in his enterprise. Chen then presented her with a path to safety, framing her as a good person, entangled with a profoundly dangerous man. Lily's rejection was immediate. I don't require an exit. In response, Chen enumerated a list of 12 potential felony charges, ranging from racketeering to extortion. We are consolidating our case, Miss Morgan, Chen articulated, and Vincent Russo will be incarcerated. The variable is whether you will be incarcerated with him. Her knuckles bleached as she gripped her phone. What is it you require? She murmured. Intelligence, testimony, he replied, presenting the stark equation. Her liberty for his. She termed it betrayal, he termed it survival. He concluded by advising her to consider her future and provided a contact number, though her hands trembled too violently to record it. Once the call terminated, the ensuing silence was oppressive. Her immediate impulse was to flee to Vincent, to alert him, yet Chen's words held her in a state of paralysis. That evening she lay next to a sleeping Vincent, her mind a theater of conflict. She struggled to reconcile the man beside her with the predator the authorities were pursuing. A single question echoed with relentless intensity. Could her love for him possibly justify the magnitude of what was demanded of her? He stirred, aware of her disquiet. "You can't sleep?" he asked softly. "Just contemplating." "About what?" "Us, our trajectory, the inevitable moment your world comes to collect its due." The lethargy in him evaporated. He became instantly tense and vigilant. "What did you hear?" Her reply was a fractured truth, a pale reflection of the fear that possessed her. "I'm just afraid, I suppose, that this is too flawless to endure." He drew her nearer, his assurances of security and command a familiar bulwark. "Nothing is going to happen. We are secure. I have everything under control." Yet for the first time, she detected the discordant note of fragility beneath his certainty. The truth descended with the weight of a sealed tomb. Her love for him was a daily affirmation, a deliberate march toward her own undoing. She kissed him, and the act was infused with desperation, falsehood, and the beautiful, fractured nature of her love. "Give me your word on something," she whispered, "anything. Promise that whatever happens, you will recall that I loved you, even at the final collapse." His denial, "nothing is collapsing," was a necessary fiction they both chose to inhabit. She held him, evaluating two unbearable betrayals, seeking the one that would inflict the lesser wound upon her soul. The dilemma was both simple and monstrous: preserve herself or preserve the man she loved. The wail of distant sirens no longer triggered an anxious response. She remained awake through the night, a tangible pressure on her chest, her mind tormented by visions of two possible futures, each culminating in ruin. With the break of dawn, Vincent departed, wholly unaware of the devastation in her gaze. A man so fixed in the gravity of his own world, he failed to notice another one imploding beside him. After his departure, Lily gazed at the unknown number in her call log. She understood that contacting Chen was the rational move, the sole path to self-preservation. But rationality had been abandoned the moment she allowed Vincent into her existence. With a single decisive motion, she affirmed her loyalty and permanently erased the number. The subsequent days became a superb enactment of normalcy, as she feigned ignorance of the perpetual sense of observation, meticulously preserving the routines of a life she knew was already forfeit. Her anxiety had honed itself into a state of paranoia. She perceived undercover officers in every unfamiliar face. This inner chaos became visible on her features, not lost on her colleague Sophie. "You appear as though you haven't slept in a week." Lily's attempt to deflect, "Just occupied with the business," was swiftly intercepted. "Do not lie to me. What is going on?" Lily paused, suspended between the impulse to confess and the dread that voicing the threat would give it a tangible form she could no longer deny. To tell Sophie, however, would render the crisis absolute. "I got a call," she eventually conceded, "from a detective. He is investigating Vincent." After Sophie's shocked stillness, Lily articulated the proposed exchange for her testimony. He wants my cooperation to imprison him. And your response was? I gave no response. I ended the call. Preempting Sophie's certain counsel, Lily stated, I cannot do it, Soph. I will not betray him. Not even if it means your own downfall? Not even then. The declaration was at once an oath of fealty and a judgment. I am in love with him, she confessed, and perhaps that is irrational, but I will not be the instrument of his imprisonment. Sophie shifted her approach, insisting Lily alert Vincent to allow him to prepare. You should at least navigate this together, she argued. Lily harbored the fear that informing him would only escalate the damage. Sophie was resolute. He must be told, and you should not have to carry this weight alone. That evening, seeing Vincent's serene expression, Lily initiated the impossible conversation. We need to speak. The casual warmth vanished from Vincent's expression. His body grew rigid, an instinctual defense against a hidden adversary. Tell me. A detective made contact with me a week ago, Lily started, meeting his gaze. He knows about us, about Dmitri. He pushed for my cooperation, proposed immunity. The silence that descended between them was total. Vincent's face was a mask of neutrality, but his hands clenched into tight fists. What was your reply to him? The query was a monument to self-control. I told him nothing. I erased the number. I will not assist them in your incarceration, Vincent. I will not be the one to place you behind bars, she affirmed, her hands betraying a slight tremor. But they are closing their net. A slow exhalation escaped Vincent as the tension within him eased. I know, he conceded, shocking Lily into silence. I have been aware of this for months. A profound weariness settled on his features as he explained his silence was a measure to protect her from anxiety, a hollow, paternalistic rationale. Her challenge to this was met with the bitter, cynical scoff, dismissing any concept of transparency regarding his criminal life. You see, my strategy to keep you insulated has failed. The failure was a tangible presence in the room. Lily's anger served as a defense for her terror, a textbook trauma response. Her question about his subsequent actions was a desperate bid for some measure of control. His method was straightforward: eliminate proof and dissuade witnesses. Vincent moved closer, his touch a calculated gesture of reassurance. My objective is to neutralize all threats, secure our holdings, and ensure any witnesses become uncooperative. She recognized it for what it was, tampering. He framed it as insurance. The top muscle in his jaw was the sole indicator of the pressure he endured. He admitted his options were now limited to damage control, acknowledging a bleak, long-term prognosis. Lily pulled back, creating a chasm between them to process the information. And what is the plan should they apprehend you? What becomes of us at that point? You sever all connections. You inform them we were separating, that you were unaware of my dealings, and you resume the life you had previously. That is not a resolution. It is the only contingency that exists. A faint quiver in his voice exposed a crack in his stoic exterior. Lily, the parameters were established from the start. This scenario was an accepted risk. And I am to simply watch as you are sent to prison? If it ensures your well-being, yes. He closed the distance, his hands framing her face with an intense possessiveness. I can endure prison. I can endure financial ruin. I cannot endure you becoming collateral damage from my actions. Tears welled in Lily's eyes, a torrent she contained through sheer force of will. I despise this. I despise our inability to resolve this like ordinary people. I am aware. My apologies. Do not apologize. Engineer a solution. She gripped his wrists, the pressure a physical embodiment of her appeal. You are Vincent Russo. You resolve impossible situations. Resolve this one. This is of a higher complexity. Then reduce its complexity. Discover an exit that does not require either your conviction or my betrayal. Her voice ascended, sharpened with desperation. You claimed you had feelings for me. Prove it. Contest this outcome rather than capitulating to it. Vincent simply stared as her defiance reordered his perspective. He then pulled her into an embrace, as if seeking sanctuary in her as his final anchor. Yes, he uttered into her hair. Yes, I will discover a way. His endeavor materialized over 2 weeks of clandestine strategy and encrypted communications. Lily learned of Vincent's engagement with a lawyer, Elena, an expert in deconstructing prosecutions, revealing a counter-investigation that had been active for months. The insurmountable problem was the state's airtight evidence, which connected Vincent to everything from racketeering to financial malfeasance. Our optimal scenario is a plea to lesser charges, Elena stated during a tense meeting Lily had insisted on attending. We could conceivably reduce it to a minimal sentence. Specify minimal, Lily insisted. 3 to 5 years, assuming good behavior. Under the table, Vincent's hand found hers, a silent point of stability in the tempest. Such an outcome is untenable. Then the terms must be improved. Elena observed them with the cool detachment of a clinician. A full pardon for Vincent is contingent upon his total cooperation. It requires him to testify against a senior figure. No. Vincent's rejection was immediate and absolute. I do not function as a source. Even as the sole path to avoiding a conviction? Even so. His jaw hardened, a clear indicator of his rigid principles. To turn on my people is to be executed within the month. Incarceration presents a better statistical probability of survival. A wave of vertigo washed over Lily. This was his grim equation, a world where the options narrowed to death or a cage, and loyalty was the variable that negated freedom. A primal need rose in her to challenge the perverse logic of his world, to insist he select her over a lethal code of conduct. Yet she understood that compelling him to violate his principles would annihilate the man she loved. She loved the man he was, not a compromised facsimile. There has to be another element, she urged quietly, a detail we have overlooked. A silent understanding passed between Elena and Vincent. A single possibility exists, Elena stated with caution, but it carries extreme risk, and its implementation must be perfect. Identify it. We permit the authorities to apprehend Vincent. We allow them the illusion of victory. Elena produced a file, spreading its contents on the table. But prior to their action, we engineer the permanent elimination of essential evidence. Key witnesses will find their bank accounts newly and untraceably funded, and they will vanish. You are proposing obstruction of justice, Lily noted. I am proposing a strategy to eviscerate the state's case before it reaches a courtroom, Elena retorted, her tone sharp. It is an unlawful and unethical maneuver, but it is one that has a chance of success. Vincent dismissed it without consideration. Too many variables. The probability of catastrophic collapse is too high. Can you suggest a superior course of action? I can. I disappear. The declaration permeated the room's quiet. Lily's heart pounded against her ribs. Disappear? Elaborate on that. I leave the board entirely, depart from New York, perhaps from the nation, and create a new existence beyond the New York Police Department's jurisdiction. Vincent aimed the query at Elena, his eyes averted from Lily. What is the necessary duration for my absence? Years, likely, potentially for life. Elena shut the file with a snap. It also necessitates severing every link to your current life, your family, your organization. One stray communication becomes a homing device. All of them? Lily's voice was barely a whisper. Including... Vincent's gaze finally met hers, the pain within it clear. It would reduce the threat profile for both of us. Threat profile? Lily gave a short, fractured laugh of disbelief. Is that your term for this? For deserting me as a method of protection? I call it preventing you from becoming leverage in a federal prison. Vincent's hands balled into fists. If I remain, they will bring you in, pressure you for intel, and systematically deconstruct your life to use against me. With me absent, you are reclassified as the spurned lover. You become irrelevant to their case. But I would be suspended in a state of uncertainty, never knowing if you were living or dead. Lily shoved her chair back, increasing the distance between them. That isn't a form of protection, Vincent. It is merely another method of psychological torment. It is the only strategy that ensures your complete isolation from the fallout. I have no desire to be isolated if you are the price. The statement emerged as a raw, untamed cry. I already endured 3 years in that limbo after David. I will not return to that state. Vincent stood to close the distance, but Lily recoiled. No, do not touch me while you frame this as a kindness. If you intend to flee, tell me the true motive. What is it you require me to say? I require you to concede that you are afraid, that you are opting for cowardice instead of fighting for what we have. Lily's sight blurred with tears she refused to shed. I need you to own that running is an act of self-interest. Her charge struck him with palpable force. Vincent winced, steadying himself on the table. For the first time in her experience with him, he appeared utterly defeated. You are correct, he admitted, the words wrenched from deep within. I am terrified. I am terrified that my presence will shatter you. I am terrified that my downfall will drag you with me. I am terrified that I am insufficient for what you deserve. His voice fractured. Running is the path of least resistance, and you are correct. It would be an act of cowardice. Lily bridged the gap between them, her hands gently framing his face. So do not run. Remain and confront this. We will navigate this together, as a unit. And if we cannot, what if there is no triumphant outcome for us? Then we are defeated as a unit. She kissed him, the flavor of salt and desperation shared between them. But we will be defeated with our principles intact. Elena's voice cut through the moment. I am compelled to interject. Our window of opportunity is contracting. The authorities may advance on us imminently. A decision is required. Vincent turned to Lily, a question in his gaze. She offered a steady, decisive nod. He faced Elena. Detail the plan for dismantling their prosecution. The subsequent week was an immersion into a gray reality between legal strategy and criminal enterprise, with Elena coordinating operatives and Vincent leveraging favors with unspoken threats. Lily absorbed the mechanics of Vincent's world, a scholar of its pressures, providing support where possible and internalizing its brutal rhythm. Within this trial, she discovered a core of steel in herself, a surprising aptitude for analyzing criminal data and witnessing raw coercion without breaking. To love Vincent meant to accept him entirely, his gift for manipulation and his contempt for the law. The arrest occurred on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Detective Chen's initial contact. A coded alert vibrated on Vincent's phone. "They are here. Execute the plan." Her hand trembled as she typed her response. "I love you. The feeling is mutual. Remain resolute." She closed her shop for the day, sought the refuge of her home, and started to wait. 2 hours later, Detective Chen materialized, his face a mask of calculated sympathy. "Ms. Morgan, it is my duty to apprise you that Vincent Russo was brought into custody earlier today. The allegations pertain to racketeering and extortion. It was a scenario Lily had practiced with Elena. I cannot make sense of that charge. Vincent runs an import company. Ms. Morgan, your association is known to us. We understand it has been roughly 3 months." Chen's tone was a precision instrument of disarming calm. "My intention here is not to arrest you. I simply require you to answer a few inquiries. Am I being accused of an offense? Not at this time. In that event, I require legal representation to be present before I make any additional statement." Lily's voice was a disciplined tool, honed by 3 years of therapy and survival instincts. "I must ask that you depart from my residence immediately." Chen's expression was one of resignation, not of shock. "My business card contains all relevant details, should you elect to cooperate." Once they were gone, Lily deliberately secured 3 different locks on her door before she collapsed onto the couch, a vessel of sorrow shattering until nothing but silence was left. The arraignment took place the following day. From her position in the gallery, Lily saw them escort Vincent in. The orange of his uniform, a stark violation against the man she recognized. His hands cuffed in front of him. His gaze located hers in the chamber, and for a brief second, the severe lines of his face softened. The prosecution laid out its case, a vast compilation of witness statements incriminating financials and silent, observing surveillance footage. The evidence appeared to be an inescapable enclosure, yet Elena deconstructed it with clinical precision, revealing the vulnerabilities of each witness and disputing the evidence's integrity until the state's argument seemed to be mere conjecture. The judge assigned bail at $2 million, a figure Vincent's family provided in under an hour. He arrived at her apartment that evening, connected to the world only by an ankle bracelet that monitored his every step. They embraced without speaking, a tacit agreement that this was just the initial conflict in a protracted war. "The trial is set for 2 months from now," Vincent finally spoke. "Elena thinks there's a good probability most charges will be dismissed, and the ones that remain, a term of probation, possibly community service." He drew back to look at her face. "There is a real possibility I could emerge from this, Lily. We might actually prevail." But this was a triumph with a psychological toll Lily had never anticipated. In the 6 weeks that ensued, she observed the intricate framework of Vincent's existence be systematically demolished. Associates vanished into the woodwork, professional connections were cut, and the same family who secured his release began to insulate themselves from his radioactive legal issues. On the eve of the trial, Vincent's uncle Antonio, the philanthropist from the picture, made an appearance. "You have become a liability," Antonio stated, his delivery devoid of emotion. "The family is unable to absorb the damage of your association with this proceeding." Vincent's stoic facade solidified. His entire existence had been poured into the family, a vessel for its ambitions, its violence. Now, that same institution presented him with a choice: a prison cell, or the proposition slid across the table by Antonio. The terms were stark: a guilty plea to lesser charges, 18 months in a low-security facility, and in return, he would become a fulcrum of betrayal, offering every name in the hierarchy above him. A profound stillness enveloped the room. A glacial chill permeated Lily's awareness as she grasped Antonio's design. Vincent was to dismantle his own world, to incinerate the very family he had served, merely to insulate them from the consequences of his loyalty. Was he being instructed to become an informant? Vincent's voice was a low, resonant threat. He was being told, Antonio countered, to be a strategist, accept the deal, endure the time, and the family's support would be waiting. To refuse was to be left with nothing. Leave, Vincent commanded, his posture radiating a menace Lily had never witnessed. Exit my home before our shared blood becomes irrelevant. Antonio retreated without further argument, the envelope a venomous artifact left on the table. You aren't truly weighing that option, Lily whispered. No? Vincent disposed of the envelope, but it does provide a stark clarification of my position within my family. The trial consumed the subsequent 3 weeks. Lily maintained a daily vigil in the courtroom, observing the prosecution's construction of Vincent as a monster, only to see Elena methodically disassemble their narrative. Witness after witness crumbled under her cross-examinations. Evidence was deemed inadmissible. Crucial testimonies were cast aside as unreliable. The strategy's success was almost miraculous. When the jury delivered its verdict, guilty on 2 minor counts, acquitted on all others, Lily felt a deep physical tremor as years of tension evacuated her body. The sentence followed a week later: 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and a substantial fine. Vincent departed the courtroom, a man no longer bound by the law. That evening, in her apartment, a quietude settled between them as their minds absorbed the event's aftershocks. It is finished, Vincent stated, his tone heavy with disbelief. We survived. It is not entirely finished. Lily reached for his hand. You remain on probation, under observation. But I am not an inmate, and you were not. His voice fractured. You were never forced to testify, never made to weigh your survival against your principles. I chose you, Lily declared, her voice resolute as she leaned into him. I will consistently choose you. After a prolonged silence, Vincent spoke. The family has severed all ties. My refusal of Antonio's deal was the final schism. I am nothing to them now. What does that signify for you? It signifies that I must construct a new life, to discover who Vincent Russo is without the framework of a criminal organization. He turned, his gaze meeting hers directly. Is there space in that new life for a florist from Brooklyn? For what felt like the first time in an age, a genuine smile blossomed on Lily's face. I believe some space can be arranged. Over the following year, Vincent began the meticulous reconstruction of his identity. He leveraged his private capital, which he insisted was legitimate, to establish a consultancy for supply chain logistics. He served his community hours at a youth center in Queens, teaching adolescents about consequence. He remained with Lily, bringing her coffee each morning, assisting in her shop, and forging a bond built on transparency and truth. The tranquility was not absolute. Vincent was plagued by nightmares of incarceration and moved with the hyper-awareness of a soldier. Lily experienced moments where the old anxiety surged, compelling her to check the door locks 4 times instead of her customary 3. They clashed over his impulse to resolve her problems preemptively, and her habit of withdrawing into silence under stress. Yet they were adapting, becoming two individuals who were complete on their own, but more resilient together. Sophie and Michael offered their cautious endorsement. Vincent made it unequivocally clear to Michael that the era of gambling, perilous debts, and endangering Sophie was concluded. Michael consented, began therapy, and embarked on the slow, arduous process of rebuilding trust. The true challenge arrived 18 months after the trial, when Vincent's probation officer conducted an unannounced visit, discovering Lily preparing dinner in his kitchen. "Did not know you had a girlfriend," the officer noted. "I did not consider it relevant to my probation," Vincent replied, his tone even. "Every variable is relevant." The officer addressed Lily. "Are you aware of his record, of what he has done?" "I am fully aware," Lily affirmed, "and I am still here." The officer regarded them for a long, appraising moment. "You are either one of the most courageous women I have ever encountered, or one of the most foolish. Likely a measure of both," Lily conceded, "but I am happy." Once he had departed, Vincent drew Lily into his arms. "You did not have to defend me in that manner. I absolutely did, because you are mine, and I do not permit people to disparage what is mine." Vincent released a laugh, a deep vibration Lily felt in her chest. "When did you become so damn fierce? I had an excellent teacher." 2 years after the trial, Vincent's probation concluded. He had met every condition, violated no rules, and established a successful, legitimate enterprise. The monitoring device was removed from his ankle, severing the last physical link to his former life. That night, he took Lily to the Italian restaurant where he had first professed his love for her. Rose's grandmother was still in the kitchen preparing carbonara, and their corner table awaited them. "I need to ask you something," Vincent said once their meals were served. And saying no is a valid choice. In truth, it is the most rational response, as this is unconventional, and we have only known each other for 2.5 years, and... "Vincent," Lily's hand covered his across the table. "Just ask." He produced a small box, revealing a simple gold band crowned with a single diamond. "I am aware that I am flawed. I know my past is a shadow that will forever linger, and that being with me is more difficult than it should be. But you inspire me to want to be better. You make me believe I can be." His voice wavered. "Marry me." Lily gazed at the ring, at the fragile hope in Vincent's eyes, and at the future they were forging from scars and hard-earned trust. She considered their survival through threats, legal battles, terror, and the monumental difficult choice to remain. "Yes," she breathed, observing as pure joy reshaped Vincent's features. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married 6 months later in a private ceremony at Sophie and Michael's home, attended only by their closest friends. There was no grand celebration, no extravagant decor, just two people vowing to choose one another every day for the remainder of their lives. Lily wore a simple cream dress, carrying a bouquet of roses from Sophie's own wedding. Vincent was in a suit that lacked its customary intimidating aura. He appeared almost tranquil as he recited his vows. "I promise to bring you coffee every single morning," he vowed, eliciting a laugh from a tearful Lily. "I promise to check the locks with you as many times as you need. I promise to speak the truth when it is difficult, and I promise to spend every day attempting to be worthy of your love." "I promise to challenge your deceptions," Lily responded. I promise to push you toward betterment. I promise to stay when circumstances become terrifying. And I promise to love you for who you are with all your scars. They shared a kiss as husband and wife, and Lily experienced a profound sense of completion, a return to herself. 3 years later, Vincent stood at his services community center, speaking to at-risk youths about making superior choices than he had. Lily observed from a distance as he forged a connection with teenagers who recognized in him a reflection of their own struggles, a man who had navigated their path and discovered an exit. After his speech, a young woman approached Vincent, her apprehension clear. "How do you know if you are making the correct decision?" she inquired. "I mean, how can you determine if something is worth the risk?" Vincent's gaze found Lily's across the room. Lily offered a small, encouraging smile. "You can never be entirely certain, but occasionally you find a person or a cause that instills bravery, that compels you to act despite your fear, or perhaps because of it. Does it always resolve well?" "No," Vincent conceded. "You can make the wrong choice, and those errors have consequences. But other times—" He reached out, his fingers intertwining with Lily's. "Other times the choice is right, and it reshapes your entire world." The girl absorbed his words before moving away to reflect on them. Vincent pulled Lily close and kissed her temple. "Are you all right?" he asked. "More than all right." Lily leaned against him, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "I am home." And it was true. This was not the quiet, anonymous existence she had envisioned for herself as a florist, but something far superior. It was a home constructed on truth and difficult choices, on a forbidden love and a trust forged in trauma. Vincent established a foundation, using his legitimate business earnings to help families escape the same predatory lenders who had nearly ruined Michael and Sophie. Lily, in turn, had expanded her own business, employing 2 assistants and undertaking significantly larger floral arrangements. They purchased a small house in Brooklyn with a garden for her to cultivate her own flowers, a sanctuary where they could enact their ritual of securing the doors and finally feel safe. They were not perfect. Vincent still endured days when the specter of his past reappeared, when he battled the man he was against the man he had become. Lily still had nights afflicted by panic and the phantom pains of her scars, but they confronted those moments together. They had built a life from the fragments of 2 broken people who found one another in a ballroom and refused to release their hold. 5 years after their wedding, Lily awoke to find Vincent observing her with an intensity she recognized as a sign of his racing mind. In this later moment of intimacy, her whispered question reveals a lingering expectation of disaster. His reply, "Everything is right," serves as a foundational truth of their new reality. Vincent's reflection on their first meeting frames their entire relationship as a fortunate accident, a near miss with a life of continued isolation. Her response recenters their origin story not on chance, but on his choice. She reminds him that his deliberate pursuit, asking her to dance, was the inciting incident. Her correction that the coffee was the superior act elevates the quiet, deliberate gesture above the public, romantic one. His laughter, a genuine artifact of their shared history, underscores the security they have since built, while his confession of terror reveals the vulnerability that underwrote his initial boldness. His reasoning was simple. The potential reward of her presence outweighed the certainty of his fear. This principle remains the central axiom of their bond. Their quiet intimacy at the morning light is not a fairy tale conclusion, but a hard-won state of equilibrium. The external chaos of New York City serves as a constant auditory backdrop against which their sanctuary is defined. Within their home, they have cultivated a space immune to that disorder. It is a life constructed from authentic, terrifying choices, not pre-written narrative tropes. When Vincent leaves to perform the ritual of making coffee, Lily's own ritual of checking the locks is a testament to the fact that healing is not erasure, but integration. It is another day of choosing the bond they forged from the fractured elements of their pasts, held together by an unwavering conscious hope.
He entered like night, she stood like winter, and love arrived like a wound opening to light. The ballroom glittered with the polished arrogance of old money. Crystal chandeliers held the night in place. Cream-colored roses floated over white linen like quiet clouds. Music swelled from the far end of the room, soft and golden, wrapping itself around laughter and champagne and the curated elegance of people who had learned to look untouchable. Lily Morgan stood at the edge of it all like someone halfway between staying and disappearing. Lavender silk covered her shoulders, her arms, her wrists, her fingers curled around a glass she had no intention of finishing. Every few seconds, almost unconsciously, her left hand tugged at the sleeve that hid the old silver scars beneath it. She did not know she was doing it anymore. The body remembers in gestures long after the mind has run out of names for fear. There was a softness to her face, but no carelessness. She was beautiful in the way abandoned chapels are beautiful, quiet, solemn, and carrying evidence of what the storms had once done to them. Across the room, Vincent Russo watched her. He was dressed in black, and somehow the color did not merely cover him, it seemed to belong to him. He stood near the bar with one hand around a glass of whiskey, his posture easy in the practiced way of men who had spent years making danger look like calm. He was not smiling. Men like Vincent smiled carefully and only when they meant to. Yet when his eyes found Lily, something in his face changed. It was not softness, not yet. It was recognition sharpened into focus. There are moments in a life when two strangers look at one another and understand with a certainty that frightens them both, that the night will not remain ordinary after this. He crossed the room. She should have turned away. Every instinct that had kept her alive these past 3 years should have told her to look elsewhere, step aside, disappear before the approaching gravity of him could alter the shape of her carefully guarded evening. But she did not. She stayed where she was, still as winter, and when he stopped before her and asked if she was the florist Sophie kept talking about, her first answer came out softer than she intended. That was how it began, not with fate proclaiming itself, but with flowers. He asked about roses. She asked about his work. He lied and called it import-export. She heard the lie and let it pass. Around them, the wedding glittered on in music and candlelight, but something more intimate had already started beneath the visible conversation. He noticed the way she watched the room. She noticed the way he kept one eye on every doorway without seeming to. They were two people who understood vigilance so instinctively that neither thought to apologize for it. Later, on the dance floor, he placed one hand at her waist as though aware that too much pressure could shatter something fragile. Her body was tense at first, held together by memory and caution, but he moved with an ease that asked rather than demanded. The song wrapped around them. His voice dipped low. His question was gentle. The sleeves, the checking, someone hurt you. She missed a step. He steadied her. In that instant, something in her shifted, not because he knew she had been harmed, but because he asked without pity. There was no flinch in him, no awkward rearranging of tone, no performance of sympathy. There was only attention, and beneath it, a dangerous kind of grief. When she told him the man who hurt her was in prison, Vincent's face remained calm, but his eyes went cold enough to make the air between them feel metallic. A different woman might have found that terrifying. Lily did find it terrifying. What frightened her more was that she also found it comforting. This was the first lesson the story whispered beneath its romance. People do not fall in love because someone appears harmless. They fall in love because someone appears capable of understanding the shape of their fear. He came to her flower shop 2 days later carrying coffee. Rain traced the window panes in thin silver lines. The shop smelled of damp soil, cut stems, and the faint sweetness of lilies beginning to open in their buckets. Vincent stood among roses and tulips like a man who had accidentally wandered into a gentler world and decided for once not to apologize for wanting to stay. He brought black coffee and sugar on the side because he did not yet know how she took it. By the next morning he knew. By the end of the week he knew which pastries she pretended not to like, so he would keep bringing them. Knew the way her mouth softened when she worked with peonies, knew how silence sat on her differently when she was sad than when she was simply tired. Love in its early form was not thunder. It was observation. It was the holy precision of remembering. But the problem with tenderness is that it illuminates whatever darkness surrounds it. The closer Vincent grew to Lily, the less believable his half-truths became. His hands carried calluses no shipping consultant should have had. His eyes darkened at certain phone calls. He disappeared for hours and returned with shadows in his expression he refused to translate. He wanted, with all the clumsy sincerity of a man raised in violence, to keep her separate from the life that had made him. He did not yet understand that secrecy is not a wall. It is a fuse. When the men came to her shop, the world he had hidden arrived at her door wearing leather jackets and polite threats. They laid down the evidence of her exposure like cards in a rigged game. Photos of her apartment, records from the hospital, Sophie's schedule, the intimate debris of a life that had once belonged only to her. The sight of those papers on the counter did something terrible. It did not merely frighten her, it made the past feel present again. The walls narrowed. The room seemed to remember another man, another terror, another time she had been reduced to someone else's leverage. But Lily did not collapse. She shook, she swallowed panic, she tasted metal at the back of her throat, yet she looked those men in the face and told them to get out. In that small flower shop full of soft colors and fragile stems, she stood harder than either of them expected. Fear was there, yes, but beneath it was something fiercer: refusal. And when Vincent arrived, furious and breathless and already half made of vengeance, she gave him the truth he least wanted to hear. Violence would not be enough. Promises to destroy everyone were not the same thing as safety. If he wanted her, really wanted her, he could not keep offering blood in place of peace. That was the second lesson. Love cannot live for long inside a fortress built entirely from retaliation. Michael's debt, Sophie's tears, the predatory machinery of men like Dimitri, these became the crucible. Vincent knew how to solve such problems quickly: money, threats, disappearances. But Lily asked for something harder. She asked him to end the pattern, not just rescue the people she loved from its latest chapter. She asked him to be more than efficient. She asked him to be transformed. He hated her for a moment then, not because she was wrong, but because she was right in the one place he'd spent his life refusing to look. That was the third lesson. The person who truly loves someone does not merely soothe the wound. They challenge the hand that keeps reopening it, even if that hand is the beloved's own. The law came next, cold and inevitable: detectives, files, courtrooms, offers wrapped in legal language that still amounted to betrayal. For Lily, the choice became unbearable: save herself or protect the man she loved. For Vincent, the choice was even crueler: run, testify, sacrifice, stay. The criminal family that had once claimed him began stepping backward away from the fire. It was then he learned the oldest truth in the world of power: that families built on fear do not break apart when danger comes. They reveal what they were all along. Not home, not blood, an arrangement. That was the fourth lesson. Anything that loves a person only while he is useful is not loyalty. It is dependency disguised as devotion. In the end, the miracle was not that they survived. It was how they survived. Not by becoming pure, not by pretending the past did not exist, but by walking out of it with their hands still open. Vincent lost the life that had shaped him. Lily lost the illusion that love could ever be risk-free. What they gained instead was harder and better. An ordinary future they had chosen with full knowledge of the cost. Coffee in the morning, locks checked together at night, a business built honestly, flowers grown in a garden behind a small house in Brooklyn, a man who once ruled through fear learning how to sit with gentleness without trying to dominate it, a woman who once survived by disappearing learning how to remain fully visible and still feel safe. This is the final lesson of the story. Healing is not the moment pain leaves. Healing is the moment pain stops being the only thing that knows how to lead. And so the great love story of Lily Morgan and Vincent Russo was not written in gunfire or courtroom victories, not really. It was written in smaller scenes, in the hand that reached without forcing, in the truth finally spoken, in the decision to stay when leaving would have been simpler, in the refusal to let fear write the ending. He arrived in black, she stood in lavender, the room glittered, the city threatened, the past returned, and somehow between all that ruin they made a home. Not a perfect one, a real one, which in the end is the only kind worth fighting for.